being 7 p.m. on July 12th, 2001, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded for live broadcast and televised replay by Bourne TV. If anyone is audio or visual recording, please acknowledge it at this time. Kim Johnson. No excused or absent members. New member Jacqueline Lucier is excused, as well as Wayne Sampson. And absent, we have Rich Lavoie and Kathy Legacy. Public comment on non-agenda items. Seeing none. FY21 reserve fund transfers.
There are no FY21 reserve fund transfers.
Thank you. The joint session with Board of Selectmen has been canceled for the reason I'm just about to ask. Tony, are there any FY21 budget transfers?
There are no FY21 budget transfers.
Thank you. And as such, there is probably not a joint session public comment, so we'll skip that. And what about FY22 reserve fund transfers?
There are no FY22 reserve fund transfers.
FY20 audit review. So just real quick, the fiscal year for the town is July 1st, 2019 through July 30th, 2020. And I just kind of wanted to remind everybody that in the tail end of 2020, we did start COVID. So I just want to keep that fresh in everybody's mind, because next year when we review the FY21 audit report, we're going to have to keep in mind that it was still during 2020. So Tony, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm going to let Erica speak a little bit about what the audit process is designed to do, which areas the audit firm engages us on. You know, it's primarily, they don't look at our budgetary performance, they more look at auditing our financial statement, internal controls, management controls, with the idea of making sure that we meet all of the, accounting standards and practices, as well as, looking to see whether they've identified any areas that, the worst being if you have a material weakness in some part of your financial program. So those are things we look for, very keenly. At other times, they'll provide comments about certain things they may have seen and make suggestions about what the town might consider doing to address those. So sometimes they're financially related, as you'll see in the FY20 audit, or FY20 audit report. It was a repeat write-up, if you will, related to information technology, which we've already addressed. They were aware that we were working on it in the middle of the audit. So that report has just been completed. We're just reviewing the final report, which addresses not only the things that they identified, most of it around IT policies, but some around securities and vulnerabilities, disaster recovery. But it will address those as well as some other things we wanted them to look at. Once that report is finalized, briefed to the Board of Selectmen, it'll be public, with the exception of anything that's related to security or vulnerabilities. For obvious reasons, we don't put that information out publicly. But if those things weren't addressed on the spot in some cases, then they will go on a task list to make sure that we address those. Because I think, as we all know and we see in the news, the dark world tends to, go after governmental organizations, big business organizations, or even small businesses for that matter. And so we want to make sure, because of the importance that we place on information technology, as well as, the opportunity, if you don't have the right systems in place, could result in theft or loss of money, as some towns and governmental entities have unfortunately experienced that, and we don't want to be included in that. But so I'll let Erica speak a little bit about the audit. She's got a background in auditing, so it would be good for her to kind of identify exactly how the process went. And happy to report that we have a unmodified, which used to be called unqualified, which is the highest you can get essentially when they review and grade your audit and your systems. So.
Okay. So each year we have an independent audit firm. We're currently engaged with Clifton Larson Allen to perform a financial audit. So they do three basic things. They express an opinion on the financial statements and whether or not they're presented fairly in accordance with GAAP. They also express an opinion on our schedule of expenditures of federal awards, so any grant money we receive from the federal government. and an opinion on compliance related to major federal award programs. They also provide a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. A report on internal control over compliance related to major federal award programs. This is, again, a part of that. It's just the internal control piece, as well as a management letter, which is based on identifying any control deficiencies or suggested improvements for the town where we could do better. The good news is we scored well on all of those. As Tony mentioned, we were issued an unmodified opinion for the financial statement audit. In regards to the single audit or the schedule of federal awards, there was a material noncompliance in relation to the school department grants, but that was because of a change in grant reporting and the date and when some expenditures were charged. But there was kind of an influx in change in turnover at the school department at that time, so we've put procedures, well, they've put procedures in place to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And then also the management letter that is presented to you, that has been presented, only has 3 comments in it. As Tony referred to, was the IT comment, which we've addressed and should, hopefully see go away in the future because we have addressed those things. And then just 2 items related to upcoming GASB related to leases and fiduciary activities. So those are more informational, if you will. I wasn't planning on getting into the specifics of the audited amounts or specific financial statements, but I'm happy to answer any questions. One thing you should note is our financial statements, there's 2 sets. There's one on the full accrual basis and one on the modified cash basis, which is kind of how we keep our books here at the town. And then they, gross them up to be kind of like a private business where they book our assets and they book our liabilities, meaning our debt and our OPEB obligations and whatnot. So on the full accrual basis, you'll notice that there are negative net assets, which is common in, I would say, most towns, and that's because of our obligations related to pension and OPEB are so large. So those are essentially unfunded. But other than that, the town is in really good financial position and in line with how where government should be.
Perfect. Anybody from the committee have any questions for Erica? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, minutes from previous meetings. I sent out meeting minutes for May 17th and June 6th. We'll start with May 17th. Did anybody have any corrections they needed to note? All right, do I have a motion for meeting minutes of May 17th?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Amanda, second by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Town. Kathleen Legacy. And would you like to abstain since you weren't here? Perfect. That's going to be 603. And meeting minutes from June 6, 2021. Any corrections anyone would like to note? Seeing none.
The
Oh.
minutes, because they're labeled June 7th. Did you say June 6th?
Did I say June 6th? I put June 6th on the agenda. Oh, so I made a boo-boo. All right, we'll just defer those to the next meeting. Make sure I write down June 7th. All right. Agenda number 10, vote committee representatives. I can go over and explain everything again, but I did send out an email explaining positions for both committees. So, first item, capital outlay. I am looking for 2 representatives to volunteer. I was asked by one of the resident appointees on that committee to mention that neither of the people that currently serve on the capital outlay committee want to be chair. So they asked me to let the committee know whoever's going to be volunteering to be prepared to be chair. This is obviously a discussion for the capital outlay committee and not for the finance committee to decide. but when you throw your hat in the ring for capital outlay, I want you to keep this in the back of your mind. So with that, do I have any volunteers for the capital outlay committee? Nobody.
All right, I'll do it.
So one will be Jim. Do you have a preference on the term expiring, whether it's 20 or 20? Jim for the term expiring 2023. Do I have one other volunteer for capital outlay?
If Jim volunteers to be chair, I'll throw my name in the ring.
It's for the capital outlay committee.
It will be up to the capital outlay committee to decide, but thank you, Parker. If either of you end up being chair, need help and advice, I will tell you right now, the town administrator's office is fantastic walking you through steps. Glenn and Tony have been just undeniably helpful with me for the past few weeks.
Thanks.
Thank you both, I appreciate it. So for the Community Engagement Committee, we have Kate Jones, who would like to volunteer, is. All right, do I have a motion, thank you, to appoint Jim Sullivan and Parker Friedman, Jim Sullivan for term expiring 2023 and Parker Friedman for the position expiring 2024?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, 9-0. Now, Community Engagement Committee. Kate Jones volunteered to be on the Community Engagement Committee. Does anyone throw in there for that committee? Seeing none. Do I have a motion for Kate, and I believe the term is going to be expiring 2024?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 9-0. Updates from committee representatives?
I don't have anything.
The Bourne Community Engagements Committee met the last Monday in June. We approved $5,000 for Canal Day so that they can bring in better bands. When you bring in better bands, you get a bit more people attending. So we heard their, I don't want to say plea, but we saw their application, we looked over all the expenses, and it made sense for us. So they were awarded $5,000. Town administrator comment?
So just a couple tonight. First, this will probably be the last time I'm before the committee, so I just wanted to, first of all, say thank you to all of you for the commitment you put into the Finance Committee, but also, working with us over the course of the last 20 months, particularly being receptive to new ideas, new ways of doing things. As you know, this year we presented our first structurally balanced budget, and we had to, move some things around on how we dealt with capital and moving some of our free cash into our capital stabilization account. I hope that continues, because I think the fruits of that labor are starting to bear fruit in a number of ways. But in addition to that, I think I probably mentioned it a couple different times over the course of the last budget season about us looking for ways to find and nurture recurring sources of revenue other than always dependent on the tax base for the most part, which makes up most of our revenue. So one of those was what I call CPE, the Certified Public Expenditure Program through the federal government, which allows municipalities to gain that delta between what Medicare pays for or insurance pays for in terms of ambulance service that the insurance company doesn't provide. So they maybe provide 70 to 75%, and the CPE program allows municipalities to put in and try to capture that remaining amount through the federal system. Bourne had not previously taken advantage of that program like other fire departments on the Cape had. I had some personal knowledge of that program, and so that was one of the things that I work with the fire chief and the staff and the finance team to ensure that we get into that program. And so this was our first time doing that. We started in the fall. It's a long process. We started in the fall collecting all of our data. We went through a desk audit in the January, February timeframe, and just before the close of the fiscal year, we got our first check for $96,400, which we've transferred to the ambulance fund. And again, the idea behind that, and the thing that I stress, is we identify these recurring sources of revenue, that we identify where we plan on putting it, what we plan on doing with it, because many times they go into the black hole of the general fund, and pretty soon people go, hey, what happened to that money we used to get every year that we're still getting? Where's it going? And so it makes sense, obviously, since that money is really, to help us recapture closer to 100% of the cost of providing ambulance service to the community, that it ought to go into that fund, support the the purchase of new ambulances as they need replacement. But what that does is helps to free up money in the capital budget that would have previously gone to pay for ambulances. Now we can use in another way, and so we'll do that again in the fall. And the program's been around for a little over 8 years. So if you think about capturing, $100,000 or more for the last 8 or 9 years, there was probably $1 million left on the table. But now we're moving forward. So, hopefully in 8 or 9 years, we've captured $1 million or more. And as we make investments in the fire department, whether it's a new Southside Fire Station, all those construction costs, all of that gets piled into the program. And so there's likely potentially some years, if those, projects go through, that we could see, 200,000, 300, 400,000, depending on what those costs are. So, the fire department's committed to it. We just need to continue to follow through on that. Watch any of the recent meetings. I'm working with the Board of Selectmen to potentially bring a pretty neat opportunity for it at the fall town meeting, which could generate up to $6 million for the town over the next 25 years. Can't get into the details yet. We're still negotiating with that, and I need to talk more with the board, but essentially, and that's year over year, right? So as you do that, that's going to help to fund investments in our strategic plan, other areas in education and so forth, depending on the town decides they want to use that. But what I think is key is making sure that we identify how we plan on doing that. So because if you don't, once you start spending in other areas, it's really hard to go back, and frankly, it's probably impossible to go back. So all of these things, as we work through that and looking at resiliency and climate change, one of the thoughts is to use a bulk of that to help fund our resiliency and infrastructure projects for the town, because that has started to become a bigger and bigger portion of what the bonding rating agencies look at in determining a community's bond rating. So Chatham just got a reaffirmation of their AAA bond rating, and the town manager put out just a note, but highlighted in there, and it caught my attention that a big portion of that was how much they are planning for and investing in resiliency and infrastructure, again, because of sea level rise and those type of things. That is something that that the bonding agencies are looking at very carefully. So we're in phase 2 of what we call the SNEP program, which is developing financing strategies to fund that. And we should finish that up around the December timeframe, and we expect that we'll be doing a rating call here sometime in the early part of the next calendar year. So if all those pieces start to align, and I said this a long time ago, Bourne is literally right on the edge, in my opinion, of being able to increase its bond rating, which saves taxpayers money. It goes to things that people look at when they want to invest in and relocate to a community. They look at your financial health, public safety, education, and those kind of things. So all of that is being codified in the selectmen's values and mission statements, the strategic plan. And so as we begin to build the FY23 budget, you're going to start to see specific things related to that. So as departments look at initiatives that support the overarching goals and objectives that the selectmen have set, that line up with our local comprehensive plan, they attach what the funding needed for that is and what the expected outcome is. So you're finishing that loop about how you're spending money, what are you spending it on, and then what do you expect for that outcome. And that all gets presented to various boards and committees and to the community so that they can follow along that we're doing what we said we did, we're spending the money where we said we did, and we're seeing the benefits of that coming out, the other end. So that's how that's all supposed to start to, gel together and work in sort of that long view type of thing. So, it's exciting. I think from, next year, budget will be another cycle, and so you'll start to see that. Now, we plan on trying to brief the Finance Committee and the Selectmen on the prior year financial review, which is what we were just talking about, FY21. And that's going to be largely focused on some of the traditional stuff we've always told you about, but also to tell you how our budgetary performance actually ended up, right? What did we actually do? And how did we achieve that? And did it match up with everything that we told you we would do? And so we're setting ourselves up, against the benchmarks and the best practices that are out there from, Mass Municipal Association, the General Finance Officers Associations, those type of benchmarks. So as we work towards hopefully eventually getting, what's really the gold standard in how you, budget in the municipal world and getting that certification from the GFOB, I think is an important milestone to try to achieve. So I thank you for all your work. There's always more to do and things to improve on, and so we obviously look for everybody's thoughts and ideas on how best to do that for the residents, the taxpayers, our business community, and our visitors and tourists. So I thank you for that. Wish you all the best of luck, and I look forward to reading great things down the road. Thank you.
Any Finance Committee comment? Well,
What's the bond rating now?
I believe it's
Double A.
AA.
Yep, AA plus. Yep, with a stable outlook.
Tony, you stole one of my comments, because I was going to thank you for your service over the years. And I've noticed some of the changes you made, and I really want to thank you for bringing that HR position back into town, because that's something we've been talking about since I joined back in 2016. And one thing I've noticed that in some of the meetings that I've attended, listening to department heads, and some of them would say, projects or programs were completed because it was under your direction, and that they were really thankful for your supervision on those. And that's really telling for me as a committee member to hear that from a department head. So thank you so much, and I am sad this will most likely be our last meeting, because I don't think we'll have any budgetary stuff.
If we do, something bad happens.
You never know. You knock on wood right now, mister. And then I should have done this earlier, but we're going to do it now. Finance Committee comment is for informational purposes only. We do have one new member. Our other new member, Jacqueline, could not make it this evening. But usually when we have new people on the committee, we go around and introduce ourselves and just kind of say where we're from, and just so you get an idea of who's who in the room. So, Kim, would you like to start?
Sure, I'm Kim Johnson. I'm the recording secretary. I now live in New Bedford, Mass.
Kate Jones, live in Sagamore Beach.
Bill Town, Picasset, returning member.
Kathleen Legacy, Monument Beach. Amanda Bongiovanni, Sagamore Beach.
Renee Gratis, grew up in Buzzards Bay, live in Picasset.
Jim Sullivan, Comet.
Parker Friedman, Greg Gables.
And I'm Tom Joyce in Sagamore Beach, and I'm glad to be here. I think I'm going to be happy here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Erica Fleming, Finance Director for the town.
Tony Schiavi, Town Administrator.
Mike Ellis, Town Accountant.
We have a few members in the audience. Right there is Glenn Cannon. He's
Assistant Town Administrator.
Yep. And behind him. Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. All right, next meeting and future agenda items. So last week, the board announced there will be a fall special town meeting on Monday, November 15th, 2021. The warrant will open August 9th, 2021, and close September 24th, 2021. Spoke to Chairman Meyer regarding how he would like to handle meetings, and I believe he stated that we would like to do joint meetings discussing the articles for special town meeting. So as the dates get closer to when we're gonna start meeting, I'll meet with Peter to figure out an exact schedule. But unless something comes up, like I just said, it looks like we probably won't be meeting till late September, early October.
One suggestion, and I know this is a little outside the box, but maybe you can hear me. This is a whole new membership. A lot of your members are fairly new.
Yeah.
For the people at home, they don't know who they are when they're talking, so nameplates, maybe if you, as chair, feel it's appropriate in front, because when you're at home, they wanna know, Joe said this, Sue said this, and they don't know because there's nothing there to say it.
We can look into that. My only counter to that is, have you ever watched a meeting at home? You can't really see the nameplates, because it's a faraway camera, but, I mean, it's something I guess we can discuss and consider. Absolutely.
Just a suggestion, just from the way proximity audience.
Any other, sorry, wrong agenda item. So that's it for future agenda items, basically, probably late September, early October, you'll hear from me about regarding the meeting schedule. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Welcome back, Bill.
My pleasure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you, everybody.